When clients are looking to do offshore development in the energy sector, a lot of what they're looking at are the shallow hazard issues. So they start with the geohazard issues, they start with the engineering constraints. One of the things they often forget about is that there's also requirements in the United States and elsewhere around the globe that involve things around marine archaeology and cultural resources. They have to assess not just whether the structure that they want to put out there is going to survive, they also have to assess whether or not they're going to impact something that has archaeological potential. We have to look for things like human settlement sites that might be up to 18,000 years old, depending on where we are in the globe. We have to assess for things like historic sites that are greater than 50 years old in the United States. If we're overseas, we're looking at sites that might be much older, much younger. But all of that is determined largely by the regulatory environment we're working in. Some of those sites are still very intact. So we might have a World War II shipwreck site that still has human remains on it. That's a concern both from an archaeological perspective and preservation, but also from a public relations perspective and the client's risk profile. If we're working with prehistoric sites or ancient sites, we're looking at areas that had human habitation on them up to 21,000 years ago. Those are very sensitive places. We're going to use the same tools that we use on the engineering and on the geological side of the house, but we're going to use it to tell the human story. So we're interested in how did people live there? How did they interact with that environment? What did it mean to them? That can be a very complicated sell at times to clients who are more concerned with, I want this structure to stay in place. But we also need to make allowances for the fact that there's information to be gained by humanity's interaction, either with the previous landform or with that water itself. One of the benefits of working with us over some of our competitors is that we are much more integrated with the other users of our data. We're not just collecting data for ourselves. We're collecting data and analyzing data for the shallow hazards piece, for the geology, for the engineering, for the structures that come behind through the permitting and regulatory aspect. We can look at the project holistically. So we will start with what's the best way to go collect this data? What's the desktop study information? What do we already know about this area? What are the constraints that go along with either collecting the data or interpreting the data? And we're not going to walk in with just our tiny piece of the pie. We're interested in how does this all engage and interact completely? And then how do we explain and tell that story to the stakeholders, to the client, to the regulatory agencies, so that people walk out of there feeling like they've made the most holistic decision they possibly can. That's our strength.